The Cry in the Void. The stars were quiet around Sector X9, a place forgotten by maps and feared by travelers. No ships moved, no signals came from it, just silence until now. A soft distress call echoed through deep space, barely a whisper, but enough to be caught by a passing scout ship. It was old, small, and patched together from many battles. It belonged to Tharn, an alien warrior with scars on his skin and metal in his blood. Tharn did not chase signals. He chased missions, contracts, and sometimes revenge. But something in the weak signal made him pause. It was not a military call or a pirate trap. It was a child's voice saying, "Please help me." He adjusted his ship's course and followed the fading signal. It led him to a dead zone where wreckage floated like space bones, bits of broken hull, frozen fuel, and the remains of a destroyed cruiser. His scanners picked up one living heartbeat inside a cracked escape pod, barely working, held together by luck and cold metal. Tharn docked his ship and floated out in his armor with a plasma rifle ready for anything. Inside the pod, the air was thin. The lights were red and flickering, and in the corner, curled up under a silver emergency blanket, was a small human boy. His face pale, his lips dry, and his eyes wide with silent fear. The boy looked up when Tharn opened the hatch and whispered one word: "Daddy." Tharn froze. He had seen war. He had seen death. He had never seen something so fragile and alone. He checked the pod logs. They were corrupted. Nothing useful. No ID, no crew list. No mention of how the boy ended up here. He lifted the boy gently and brought him aboard the scout ship, gave him water and covered him in warm blankets. The boy did not speak much, only said he was on a big ship with his mama, and then loud sounds and shaking, and then darkness. Tharn tried to send a message to nearby human colonies, but there was no reply. The comms were jammed, or someone was blocking them. Then his ship shook, not from damage, but from proximity. A cloaked vessel had appeared right behind him. Too close, too quiet, and not friendly. Tharn's warrior instincts kicked in. He placed the boy in the emergency cradle and ran to the controls. He saw the outline of a Predator-class bounty ship, the kind used by contract killers, not scavengers. He knew at once the boy was not just lost. Someone wanted him gone, and they had sent death to make sure. Tharn's engines roared as he slammed the ship into warp, just before a plasma torpedo hit where they had been a second ago, inside the warp stream. Tharn looked at the boy. The child was sleeping now, safe for the moment. But questions screamed in Tharn's mind. Who was the boy? What was he carrying? And why was someone willing to kill to stop his rescuers? He stared at the stars flashing by. Tharn did not feel like a soldier or a bounty hunter anymore. He felt something strange. A pull inside his chest. Not duty. Not money. Something older. Something deeper. He did not know it yet. But this mission was no longer just about survival. It was about truth, protection, and perhaps redemption. And far away in a dark control room, a tall shadow watched a blinking red dot move across a star map. A voice behind him said, "We failed to intercept the child," the shadow replied. "Send more hunters, increase the price. Triple it." The voice trembled. "He's just a human child. Why so much effort?" The shadow turned with glowing eyes and whispered, "Because he's not just human." Back on Tharn's ship, the boy stirred in his sleep. His hand glowed faint blue, and the ancient alien pendant around his neck pulsed with light. And Tharn watched quietly, already planning their next move, knowing that this was only the beginning of a war written in stars and secrets. Would the galaxy survive what the child would become? Would Tharn survive the promise he had just made without speaking a word? He didn't know yet, but he knew this. He would protect the boy, even if it meant crossing every star and facing every monster. In the dark sky, the chase begins. The warp tunnel hissed with streaks of blue light as Tharn's ship sliced through the void space outside. Looked calm, but Tharn's muscles stayed tense. His hands never left the controls. His eyes kept watching the radar. Even though he knew the bounty ship couldn't follow at warp, something told him this wasn't over. The boy lay wrapped in a thermal blanket, his breathing soft, his cheeks warmer now, but his fingers still clutched Tharn's wrist like he was afraid the moment he let go he would vanish again. "Are you my daddy?" the boy asked again, his voice no longer scared, just sleepy and soft. Tharn looked down, not sure what to say. He had no children of his own. He never had time for family war, and blood had been his only companions. But this boy stared at him, like he was his only light in a universe full of shadows. "No," Tharn said finally, "but I'll keep you safe." The boy smiled and closed his eyes again. And for a moment, the ship was quiet, like peace had found a small place to hide in the metal walls. But it didn't last. Tharn's radar beeped a soft warning. Something was wrong. He checked again and saw a trail left in warp space, almost invisible. But there a sign that someone else had jumped after them with stealth tech, high-grade bounty equipment, not normal pirates or mercs. This was planned. Professional, expensive. Someone powerful wanted this child. He couldn't go to human colonies. Not yet. He didn't know who to trust. And if these hunters had stealth ships, they could have spies too. No, Tharn needed answers first, and for that he had one name in mind: Station Krekel orbiting moon. Dren 5, it was run by a neutral species called the Krix. They dealt in information secrets, trade, and sometimes old friends. Tharn had once saved a Krieg named Zune from a syndicate ambush. If anyone knew what was going on, it was him. He shifted course and entered a dusty orbital field around Dren 5. The station floated like a metal mushroom above the cracked moon surface, black and red lights blinking warnings as he approached. But something felt wrong. Too quiet, too dark. He hailed the station. No response as he drew closer. He saw it: damaged scorch marks, broken hull, torn docking arms. Something had attacked recently. And not for loot. No, this was an execution. He landed anyway, plasma gun in hand, and stepped into the cold metal hallway. Smoke still hung in the air. Bodies lay still. Mostly Krix, but a few were humans too. Tharn moved fast, checking doors, listening for traps, scanning logs, but most systems were fried. Then he found him. Zune was alive, barely one arm missing, eyes dim but breathing. Tharn knelt beside him and whispered, "Who did this?" Zune coughed and grabbed Tharn's arm. "The child. They asked for the human child." "What child?" Tharn asked. Zune smiled, a painful smile. "The one with Elyari blood." Then he went still. Tharn's heart skipped. The Elyari were a myth. An ancient race long extinct, said to possess the ability to shape energy and light. With thought their bloodline was gone. Or so everyone believed. He returned to the ship. His mind spinning, the child had something in him. Something others feared or wanted, or both. Tharn scanned the boy again, this time deeper at the genetic level, and saw it clear as starfire mixed with human DNA, a dormant sequence glowing with faint blue lines. Elyari markers not active yet, but definitely there. That explained the hunters. The silence, the bounty. This child wasn't lost by accident. He was hidden and now found, and now hunted as Tharn processed everything. His radar screamed again. 3 ships decloaked just above the planet. They had followed him, waited for him, let him walk into the ruined station, and now planned to trap him. Too late for stealth, too late for escape. He grabbed the child and rushed to the controls. The ships opened fire lasers, streaking across the station shields. Tharn spun his scout into a dive, barely dodging impact. Pieces of metal flew past the cockpit alarms, screamed behind them, But he kept flying, pushing the old ship harder than ever before. The boy woke up during the chaos, but didn't scream. He just held tight and whispered, "You're not going to leave me." "Right. Never." Tharn growled as he pulled the ship up into orbit, shaking the enemy long enough to activate a second emergency warp jump. Coordinates random just to get out, just to breathe. The ship jumped into light again, and for a second, everything stretched. Stars screamed and gravity twisted. Then, silence. The ship floated in deep space. Unknown sector. No planets. No ships. Just the two of them again. Tharn sat down beside the child heart still racing and whispered, "You are not just a child. You're something very old and very important." The boy looked confused. "I just want my mama." Tharn didn't answer. He looked at the pendant still glowing faintly around the boy's neck. He didn't know what kind of power this child carried, or what danger would come next. But he knew this. He would find out, and he would keep the boy alive even if it meant going to war with every system across the stars. Secrets of the Blood. The scout ship floated in a quiet sector where no trade lanes passed and no signals reached a dark corner of space Tharn had once used as a hiding place years ago, back when he ran smuggling routes for rebel factions. Now it was just empty space and broken memories. But it was safe for now. The boy sat curled in a padded corner, munching on a dried ration bar, his feet swinging gently, his eyes curious but tired. Tharn watched him while scanning the ship for damage. The last escape had nearly fried the left thruster, and the cloak generator was gone completely. They wouldn't get another lucky jump like that. He needed answers. Tharn loaded the deeper genetic scan into the med bay console. The results were already waiting. They made no sense at first. Too complex, too ancient. But one pattern stood out, glowing bright in the center of the screen. Eliari bloodline confirmed, not a mutation, not a fluke. This child was a true carrier. He stared at the data. The Eliari had vanished 5,000 years ago in a war that burned 3 star systems to ash. Everyone believed their bloodline was gone, wiped out for safety. Some said their power could awaken suns or destroy them with a whisper. And now that power was inside. This quiet boy licking crumbs from his fingers and asking if he could draw on the screen with his finger. Tharn had once seen a scroll old and hidden deep in a forbidden temple. It showed a child with glowing eyes standing between armies, who bowed to him instead of fighting. And above the child was the Eliari crest. 3 stars and a flame. That same crest was now glowing softly on the boy's pendant. Tharn knelt beside the child and asked him slowly, "Where did you get this?" The boy tilted his head. "My mama gave it to me before the big ship shook. She said it would keep me safe." "Where is your mama now?" The boy's face fell. "She said she had to stay behind, and I had to be brave." Tharn felt something deep twist inside him. This child wasn't lost by accident. He was sent away hidden for a reason, and whoever the mother was, she knew people would come to take him. He activated the pendant. It responded instantly, glowing brighter, projecting a flickering hologram. A woman appeared, tired, bruised, but strong. "If you're seeing this," she said, "it means they found us, and I had no choice." She looked into the recorder with fierce eyes. "This is my son. His name is Kale. He carries a gift and a curse. The Eliari blood inside him is real, and it's waking up. They will try to control him or kill him to stop what he might become." Then she smiled and whispered to her son, "Be brave, little star. Find someone who will protect you, someone who sees you, not just your blood." The message ended. The light vanished. The ship went quiet again. Kale sniffled and leaned into Tharn's side. "Do you know my mama?" "No," Tharn said. "But I think I know who wants you now." He stood up and started plotting a course. There was one place left where answers might exist. The temple of hollow suns, a ruined Eliari site buried on a cold, dead moon. The place was sacred and forbidden and protected by legends of traps and madness. But Tharn didn't care anymore. He needed to know what Kyle really was. He set the ship on course and checked the shields again. The damage was worse than he thought, but there was no time to stop. They had already been tracked once, and next time there would be more ships. Maybe armies. Kyle wandered over and stared at the stars through the glass. Are they all coming for me? Tharn didn't lie, maybe. But you have me now. Kyle nodded. You're stronger than the scary ones. Tharn looked away. Not sure if he believed that anymore. He had seen many warriors stronger, faster, more ruthless, but never had any of them protected something as pure as this child. The stars shifted as the ship entered the gravity pull of the moon. The surface below was gray, cracked and lifeless. But near the pole, a single spire stood untouched by time. The temple landed with a heavy thud. Tharn carried Kale in one arm, plasma rifle in the other, ready for anything. The entrance was open, like it had been waiting. Inside, the walls were covered in glowing scripts, ancient Eliari writing that moved when Kale walked. Past, the air smelled like dust and energy and memory. Kale reached out and touched the wall, and the whole temple responded. Lights flared, images appeared in the air. Stars swirling battles. Forgotten voices speaking in a language only his blood seemed to understand. Then a figure appeared, not real, but a memory. An Eliari warrior with silver skin and fire in her eyes. She spoke to Kale in glowing words. Child of two worlds, your time has come. The stars will bend or break by your will. Choose wisely and guard your heart. Kyle looked afraid, but Tharn stepped forward. What does that mean? The vision didn't answer. It faded, and the walls dimmed again. Kyle held onto Tharn's cloak tightly and whispered, I think they want me to do something, but I don't. No. What Tharn stared into the shadows of the temple and knew the worst was still ahead. The hunters wouldn't stop. The warlords wouldn't stop, and even Kyle's own power might turn against him. But Tharn made a silent vow under the cold temple roof. No matter what came next, he would not let this child be used, not by kings, not by killers, and not even by fate itself. The betrayer's face. Tharn stood in silence outside the Temple of Hollow Suns, while Kale slept inside the ship, curled up with his blanket and the glowing pendant resting on his chest. The cold moon wind blew across the cracked stone, whispering through the broken spires like ancient ghosts. Tharn had heard many things in his life. Battle cries, death screams, desperate begging. But nothing had chilled him like the voice from that temple. The stars will bend or break by your will. Kale didn't understand it yet, but Tharn did. The boy was more than special. He wasn't just rare. He was dangerous. Not to Tharn, but to the powers who ruled the galaxy. If they feared him enough to kill whole stations, send cloaked hunters, erase records, then Kale was holding something far greater than even Tharn had imagined, and he couldn't protect the boy alone. Not with every bounty guild and warlord chasing them across the stars. He needed help. He needed someone with ships, allies, and answers. He needed General Krith. Tharn hated asking for favors, especially from the past. Krith was a decorated warlord, once a rebel commander and Tharn's mentor during the Black Flame Uprising. They had fought back to back, killed monsters together, and survived betrayals that still haunted Tharn in sleep. But Krith had changed. After the rebellion, he had vanished into politics and silence, building his own faction from the shadows. Tharn sent the call. No location, no ID, just a signal and a code. Krith answered within 5 minutes. His message was short. Come to Sector 3X. You'll land in a hidden dock. No weapons. Bring the child. Tharn didn't like it, but he had no better choice. He woke Kyle gently, helped him into a warm jacket, and said they had to meet someone important. Kyle nodded and didn't complain. He held Tharn's hand tighter than ever. When they arrived, The hidden station didn't appear on scanners until they were right above it. A cloaked fortress carved into a floating asteroid, with old rebel banners still hanging like faded memories. Docking clamps grabbed the ship, and steel arms opened the bay. Tharn stepped out, holding Kyle's hand, his plasma pistol hidden but ready. Krith waited inside. He was older, more armored, with sharp eyes and a voice that still carried command. "I expected you years ago," Krith said with a smirk. "I don't visit ghosts," Tharn replied coldly. Krith's eyes drifted to Kale. "So, this is the boy." Kale looked up with wide eyes. "Are you a general?" Krith knelt slightly. "I am, and you must be the most important child in the galaxy." Tharn watched every movement. "I came for answers. You know who's after him. Tell me why." Krith stood and led them into a quiet chamber. Screens lit up with data. Star charts, bounty, alerts, bloodline logs. "There's a war coming," Krith said. "Not just ships and guns. A war of bloodlines. A few factions believe the Eliari can be reborn through the right host. Others believe that if one is found, he must be erased to keep balance." He turned to Kyle. "He is that host." Tharn's jaw clenched. "Then why are you still breathing? You could have handed us over by now." Krith looked almost sad. "Because I once believed in protecting the innocent. I still do." But then the door opened behind them. 4 armored soldiers entered, heavy plasma rifles. Faces hidden. They weren't here for protection. Tharn reached for his weapon, but Krith raised a hand. "Don't. I haven't betrayed you yet." "Yet?" Tharn growled. "I offered you a chance," Krith said. "Give me the boy. Let me protect him in my way. I can hide him, raise him, use his blood to make peace." Tharn's eyes burned. "Use? He's a weapon, Tharn. And weapons belong in hands that know how to use them." Kyle stepped back, his pendant glowing again, his breath fast. Tharn moved between him and the guards. "No," he said. "He's a child, not a weapon. Not yours. Not anyone's." Krith's face hardened. "Then you're a fool." Tharn didn't answer with words. He moved like thunder. In one breath, he fired 2 shots, grabbed Kyle, and flipped over the table as the chamber exploded into light. Guards shouted. Plasma cracked. Tharn kicked the door open, pulled Kyle through, side corridors he remembered from years ago, and sprinted for the hangar. Alarms blared. Krith's voice echoed through the halls. "Stop him! Bring me the boy alive!" The ship door hissed open. Tharn shoved Kale inside and launched into space, as cannon fire lit up behind them. Shields barely held. Stars streaked again as they jumped to safety. Inside, Kale was shaking, tears falling. "Why did he want me?" Tharn held him close. "Because you matter. Because people are afraid of what you could become." Kale whispered, "I don't want to hurt people." Tharn nodded. "Then don't. Just stay alive. That's the first battle." And far behind them, in the shadows of that hidden station, Krith watched the stars and whispered, "You'll come back to me, boy. The galaxy will make sure of it." The dead planet's memory. The stars above were dull and distant as Tharn's ship descended toward a forgotten planet, Korzar 9. Long ago, this place had been alive with Eliari cities, glowing towers, and skies filled with song. Now, only silence remained. A dead planet. A cursed world. No ships came here. No maps marked its location. It had become legend. And Tharn needed that legend now. The boy, Kyle, stood at the window, his small hand pressed against the glass. "It feels cold," he whispered. "It is," Tharn replied. "This place died long before either of us were born." Kale didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. Tharn landed the ship in the shadow of a shattered mountain, Ancient ruins jutted from the ground like broken teeth. Towers that once touched the stars now buried under dust and ash. The air was thin but breathable. The silence was thick, like the planet itself was holding its breath. Kyle followed Tharn across the cracked stone paths. Strange, glowing vines pulsed faintly beneath their feet, reacting to Kale's steps. The deeper they walked into the ruins, the more the light followed. Symbols on walls lit up when Kale passed. Scripts neither of them could read shimmered and faded like whispers in time. Then, they reached it. A giant door covered in spirals and Elyari runes, as tall as a starship and just as silent. Tharn touched it. Nothing happened. Then Kyle stepped forward and raised his hand. The pendant on his chest pulsed once, and the door melted away like smoke. Beyond it lay the memory hall, a long corridor of glass and crystal, lined with ancient devices and glowing orbs. The air inside was warmer, filled with a strange humming sound like old songs waiting to be sung again. Kale walked slowly, his eyes wide. It's like it knows me. Tharn followed, weapon in hand. Maybe it does. At the center of the hall stood a platform. Kyle stepped onto it without fear. The crystals around him flared with bright blue light. Then, images appeared all around. Glowing shapes, moving memories. A war, explosions across stars. Elyari ships battling something black and endless. Whole planets vanishing into dark holes. A council of Elyari elders arguing, one of them slamming a hand on a table. Then a child was shown. A small figure glowing with golden light. The council bowed before him. Then came betrayal. Assassins. Fire. Blood. And silence. Kyle stared at the scenes, eyes full of tears. "That boy is me," Tharn whispered. "No, that was long ago. But whatever he was, is waking inside you now." The crystal floor began to shift. Another hologram rose. This time, a woman. An Elyari. Silver skin, glowing eyes, long robes. She looked at Kale and began to speak in an old voice full of power and sadness. "To the child of two stars, if you are seeing this, then the fire still lives. You carry our hopes and our curse. We gave up power to survive. We hid our gifts in the future. You are that future." Kyle took a step back. "I don't want this." The figure smiled gently. "Power does not ask if you want it. It only asks what you will do with it." Then the vision faded. The floor beneath them shook. Dust fell from the high ceiling. Tharn drew his weapon. "I didn't touch anything," Kyle said quickly. "We're not alone anymore," Tharn replied. The scanner blinked red. 2 ships had just entered orbit. No beacon, no signal. But Tharn recognized the signatures. Bounty ships. Bigger than before. They must have tracked the pendant's activation across deep space. Tharn grabbed Kale's hand. "We run. Now." But the door behind them was already closing, crystals sealing it shut. "We're trapped," Kyle said. "No," Tharn growled. "We stand." He turned and faced the open chamber. As the first bounty hunter dropped down through the broken ceiling, in a black armored suit, Tharn opened fire. The plasma blast hit him clean in the chest, but more came. 5, then 7. Kale crouched behind a crystal pillar, trembling. One hunter spotted him and raised a rifle. "No!" Tharn roared, charging through the chaos, knocking the hunter off his feet, but there were too many. Tharn's shoulder burned with a hit. His leg gave out. Then something changed. Kyle stood. The pendant on his chest glowed brighter than ever. His eyes shimmered, gold and blue. The crystals all around pulsed with him. He raised a small hand, and the air exploded with light. A wave of pure force blasted outward, sending the bounty hunters flying like leaves in a storm. Energy danced across the ceiling. Ancient devices sparked awake. The temple itself seemed to breathe again. Tharn stared in disbelief. Kyle stood tall, his hair glowing with soft blue sparks, his eyes wide but calm. "I didn't mean to do that," he whispered. Tharn pulled himself to his feet. "You saved us." Kale looked at his hands. "But what if I can't control it next time?" Tharn limped toward him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we learn. Together." Outside, the ships above retreated, afraid to land now. The memory of the Iliari had returned, and it lived in the body of a small human boy. Tharn looked at the rising dust and broken sky. They would never stop coming. But now they knew what the boy could do. And soon, so would the galaxy. The warrior's last stand. Smoke drifted through the broken halls of the ancient Iliari temple as Tharn tightened the seal on his cracked shoulder guard. His wounds burned, but he didn't let Kyle see the pain. The boy had seen too much already, still glowing faintly from the burst of Iliari power. Kale sat near a pulsing crystal wall, knees to his chest, eyes distant and scared. "I didn't mean to hurt them," Kyle whispered, voice trembling. Tharn didn't look at him. He was scanning the air, counting minutes before another enemy wave came down from orbit. "You didn't hurt them," Tharn said. "You stopped them." Kyle looked up. "But what if next time I can't stop? What if I become something bad?" Tharn finally turned. His voice was low, firm. "Then I'll be there. I promise to protect you. And I will. Even from yourself." But deep inside, Tharn knew what Kale feared might come true. The power inside him was growing, responding to fear, pain, instinct. If left unchecked, it could destroy planets. And Tharn had no idea how to control it. The scanner buzzed again. A fleet had arrived. Not 1 or 2 bounty ships this time. 9. They filled the sky like dark wings blotting out the stars, led by a destroyer-class command ship. It bore the markings of the Obsidian Syndicate, one of the galaxy's oldest and cruelest forces. If they had joined the hunt, this wasn't about a bounty anymore. This was extermination. Tharn activated every remaining defense system in the temple. Shields sparked. Old Iliari drones lifted from the ground, their metal bodies hissing as ancient code rebooted. Tharn loaded his rifle, strapped extra cells to his belt, and glanced at the entrance. "We don't run this time," he said. Kyle stood slowly. "We fight?" Tharn knelt beside him. "I fight. You survive." Kyle shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." "You will if I fall," Tharn said. "I've set a route through. The tunnels. A ship is hidden in the temple core. Small. Fast. You'll take it if I don't come back." Kale's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded. "Only if I have to." The first drop pods crashed outside. Dust shook from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Tharn stepped forward and waited at the broken doorway of the temple, his shadow long against the light of dawn creeping across the planet's dead surface. The doors split open. He stood alone, one against many. The Syndicate soldiers fanned out in armor too advanced for most mercs. Plasma cannons mounted on their arms, targeting systems scanning for threats. But none stepped forward. Then a voice came from behind them. Clad in shimmering black and red, a tall alien woman emerged. Her face was covered by a silver mask, but her voice was smooth and cruel. "Tharn," she said, "you always take the hardest roads. You should have sold the boy when you had the chance." "I don't sell children," Tharn growled. She laughed softly. "Everyone sells something. You're just too broken to know what your price is." Then she raised a hand, and all at once, the soldiers opened fire. Tharn moved like lightning. His rifle roared. Ancient temple shields activated, just in time. Plasma tore through the air. Tharn rolled between blasts, using fallen statues for cover. Eliari drones joined him, firing beams of pale blue light. The temple floor cracked under the weight of the assault. Kyle watched from deep inside, his hands trembling. Each explosion echoed in his chest like thunder. But he didn't run. He whispered, "Don't fall. Please don't fall." Outside, Tharn was hit. A bolt struck his side, burning through armor. He grunted and kept moving, slicing through two soldiers with a stolen blade, knocking another off the cliff edge. His vision blurred. More came. Then Kyle stepped into the hallway. His pendant shone. The enemy paused. The masked commander tilted, her head. "Ah, the little god finally walks." Kyle's voice cracked. "Leave him alone." The commander laughed. "Or what, child? You'll scream and make the temple cry again." Kale took a shaky breath. Then something inside him snapped awake. The crystal walls behind him pulsed. The air bent with energy. Tharn, wounded and breathless, looked up and saw Kale floating slightly off the ground, eyes glowing bright gold, strands of light wrapping around his arms. Kale raised both hands, and the sky broke. A column of blue fire crashed down from the heavens, slamming into the Syndicate's destroyer above. It exploded mid-air, raining debris onto the battlefield. Soldiers screamed, shield shorted. The masked woman turned to run, but was caught in a shockwave and thrown into the wall. Silence followed. The air calmed. The light faded. Kyle collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Tharn dragged himself over and caught him in his arms before he hit the ground. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved us." Behind them, the temple glowed softly, no longer dark, no longer forgotten. It had been awakened. But so had the galaxy. And now they would all come. Not for the child, but for what he had become. And Tharn knew. He couldn't protect him forever. Part 6 is now complete, ready to continue with Part 7. Final part. Let me know, and I'll write a powerful and emotional conclusion where the galaxy responds to what Kyle has become, and what Tharn must decide to protect him once and for all. A new star in the sky. Kyle slept for 2 days. Tharn stayed close, guarding the small chamber deep inside the Eliari temple. The boy's breathing was steady, but his body glowed faintly with energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Gentle, warm, alive. The temple itself had changed too. Walls that were once cold stone now shimmered with soft light. Ancient machines hummed quietly. It was as if the building had been waiting centuries for Kyle to awaken. Outside, the battlefield was silent. The Syndicate's forces were gone. What few survived had fled. No more ships hovered above. No more enemies lurked in the dust. But Tharn knew better. This was only a pause. The galaxy had seen the power Kale held, and now they would all come. Kings, warlords, scientists, prophets. Some would come to worship, others to destroy. Tharn stood beside a high window and looked at the dead sky. Somewhere beyond the stars, someone was already preparing to strike again. He didn't have much time. Kyle stirred. His eyes opened slowly. "Did I hurt anyone?" Tharn sat beside him. "You protected me. You protected yourself. You saved a place that hasn't felt alive in thousands of years." Kyle frowned. "I don't want to hurt people. But the light inside me, it doesn't ask. It just comes." Tharn reached out and gently placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder. "That's why you need to learn. Not how to use it, how to carry it." Kyle nodded quietly, then looked around the room. "I don't think I'm just a boy anymore." Tharn smiled faintly. "No, but I still see a boy when I look at you. A scared, brave, stubborn one." Kale laughed, just a little. And that laugh lit up something in Tharn's chest he hadn't felt in years. Hope. But it didn't last. A signal beeped from the ship. An incoming call on an encrypted channel. Tharn narrowed his eyes. No one should have been able to find them here, he answered. A hologram flickered to life. Commander Elira. Human. Military. Sharp eyes. Cold voice. Behind her stood a squad of soldiers, but they didn't look like hunters. They looked like guardians. You have something that belongs to us, she said. Tharn didn't blink. He doesn't belong to anyone. Elira studied him. You're not wrong, but you also know you can't keep him hidden anymore. The galaxy felt that blast. Kyle's awakening echoed across star networks, relic stations, and forgotten sensors. You bought him time. Now you have to trust others to protect him. I don't trust anyone, Tharn replied. Then trust him, Elira said. His mother was my sister. I've been searching for him for 6 years. Kale stepped beside Tharn, staring at the woman. You knew my mama? Elira's face softened. Yes, and she loved you more than her own life. Kale turned to Tharn. Should I go with her? Tharn's throat tightened. He wasn't ready to let Kale go. Not now. Not ever. But he had no home, no army, and no way to shield Kale from what was coming. Elira's ship was strong. Her authority was real. If anyone could hide Kale again, teach him safely, it might be her. It's your choice, Tharn said at last. But wherever you go, I'll always come if you call. Kyle hugged him hard. You're my hero, Tharn. Tharn held the boy close. And you're the star that will light up a dying galaxy. Hours later, the ship took off. Kyle waved from the window as the transport vanished into the sky. Tharn stood alone in the ruins of the temple, watching the stars. Behind him, the memory of the Eliari flickered one last time. An echo from the past. The silver-skinned woman who had once spoken to Kale now spoke to Tharn. You were the shield. He is the fire. And together, you have awakened the future. Then the temple dimmed and returned to silence. Far above the dead world, Kale's ship joined the stars, now safe, at least for now. And across the galaxy, old powers stirred. Some feared him. Some worshipped him. But all would remember the story of a warrior who stood alone, a child with ancient blood, and the moment when a forgotten spark became a new star in the sky.